episode 91 of the LTD Pod, the Left of the Dial podcast. I'm Flick, and along with me today is Richard.
That's right. That's Flick over there. I'm over here in Oakland.
Yeah.
How you doing, Flick?
So when we say over here and over there, like we're not just talking about across the room from each other.
Yeah, we're not in like a plush, awesome recording studio in someone's mega mansion. I'm in a closed closet. So I love it. You know, it's not for everybody, but
you have to find your niche.
That's right, man. That's what they say.
That's what they say.
And what are we talking about this week?
Today we are talking about not necessarily the Pixies, or I guess, are people going to get on me if I say the Pixies? If anybody does, I have a recording of at least one time where, in concert, Kim Deal said, "Hey, we're the Pixies." So if Kim Deal can say we're, the Pixies, then
that's why she got out of the band.
So. Maybe.
Yeah.
But anyway, if the Pixies police are out there, I am guilty of the crime of saying the Pixies, I guess, right off the bat. But we're not talking about them exactly today. We're talking about what happened when Pixies. See, because like when you say when Pixies broke up, that doesn't sound good. So I say when the Pixies broke up. Granted, they're together again, but I guess kind of part of the inspiration for this show is that, they're once again, they're out there doing the festival circuit. They're very big. Like they make a lot of the festival stops, and it's obviously a nice payday for them. But kind of leaving something behind in the process, because I think there was a lot of great stuff that maybe got forgotten about or not even known at all in between Pixies being together in the early days and then the reunion.
I think we need the bird's eye view, Sean. May I attempt such a thing?
Oh, sure.
Okay, so young oddball, college dropout, Charles Michael Kittredge Thompson IV, I believe.
Third, I think.
Third?
Well, I guess we'll find out.
Chat is blowing up. Forms Pixies 1986. They're a band through 1993.
Oh, you're right, the fourth.
And they put out some really cool records. They're loud, but they're not cliched. They're, art rock, but they're not boring. The first run of Pixies albums from that time period are really cool and had so much mystique to them when the band was still broken up. Band breaks up. Charles Michael Kittredge Thompson IV in Pixies goes by Black Francis from, I guess that would be, 92 to maybe now. He becomes Frank Black and puts out a bunch of really cool solo records. Meanwhile, the other really iconic voice in terms of vocalist in the Pixies is Kim Deal, the aforementioned Kim Deal. And she has another project which has been going on, I think, since before Pixies. That band is called The Breeders. They put out one really cool album called Pod in 1990 while Pixies are still an ongoing concern. And then that's kind of her full-time thing in the interim. And continues to be with a little stopover with a weird little side album called Pacer by the Amps. In between, when Pixies break up, Joey Santiago goes off and does a band called the Martinis, which I've never been able to get into.
They might not be very well represented today.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert. But and between Breeders, that album Pacer by the Amps, albums by Frank Black and the Catholics, there's just so much good music that goes on after Pixies break up. Uh, it's kind of hard to know where to start, which is why we compiled some very helpful Spotify playlists. Could you please inform our listeners on how to access these well cultivated playlists?
Well, you go to Spotify. I guess I won't fill you in on all of the all of the ways to access Spotify, but once you access Spotify, you would search LOTD Pod, which will bring up our podcast. One would hope, anyway. And if you don't subscribe to us there, you can do that. But it will also bring up our profile. So if you look under profiles, you will find our page, and on our page, you will find our playlist. My playlist is called Post-Pixies Flicks Pix, which is PIX.
Good one.
Right. And Richard's list is called Post-Pixies Gold.
Easy enough.
And yeah, so we've compiled separate lists. Mine is almost exactly 1 hour long, and because I felt like I had to put some kind of constraints on it.
There's just so much out there, and
There is.
I didn't even I couldn't narrow it down. So mine's like probably about like 2 hours or something.
Yeah, I I narrowed it down a little bit by trying to take out what I felt like people would already know, which isn't a lot. But I felt like everybody knows the song "Cannonball" by the Breeders, right? I mean,
I assume so, but
yeah.
I'm also like 40 years old, so
Well,
I
yeah,
could totally see like a cool like teenager these days
the
not
teenager of the
knowing that
year.
exact good one, not knowing that there's a connection between that song, which I don't even know if it's on the radio anymore because I haven't listened to.
I think it. I don't know. I don't check in with the radio very much. It should always be on the radio. It's just it's a
It's
banger.
it's a
Like
monster hit. It's totally
like
great.
the
Yeah,
term banger gets overused, but it definitely applies here.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
um,
Use it when you mean it,
that's right.
and he means it, folks.
I certainly do. But it doesn't make my list because I felt like if you know anything, um, any of the stuff that is Pixies adjacent, I would think Cannonball. And I'm also going to give you credit for knowing the first two Frank Black albums, because those are also fairly well known.
Right. I think you're maybe and you're probably right that a lot of our listeners, and I see a lot of you out there right now, so thanks as always for listening to Left of the Dial podcast. Um yeah, maybe you're wandering into it like knowing if you're like a indie person following this podcast, you probably know something about this group, these groups surrounding this group and all the people involved. But I'm also gonna remind everybody of the There She Goes paradox, where a song that is annoying because you've heard it so many times can years and years later be revealed to be a really great song once you put
mhm.
it down for like a decade. So
I
I included all that stuff. I included Los Angeles, all the big hits. I think those are great songs and they were hits for a reason.
I I think that premise is definitely a solid premise. It never applied to that song for me, though. I always thought that was a great song.
Yeah.
But
So tell me a little bit about I think a lot of what we're going to be talking about is Frank Black's solo career. So maybe we can start with that.
yeah, I mean, we're definitely focused on Frank Black and Kim Deal, or Frank Black, Black Francis Charles, um, Thompson, Kittredge. Him. We're focused on those two primarily, but at the same time, we are going to cover all of them because Joey Santiago and Dave Lovering. They did collaborate with Frank Black on some of this stuff. I guess we'll get to which of those things we're talking about, but we will cover everybody at some point. But yeah, I mean, the bulk of this is going to be about two of these people.
Yeah, I'll be on that ride with you for roughly an hour and 15 minutes. So whatever we get around to.
Yeah.
Frank Black, what was your first I assume that you've seen a lot of shows. You have very good stories. I assume that you saw Frank Black solo
Hmm.
before you saw Pixies.
No, after, because you and I went to see Pixies when they first reunited.
Their very first show, that's right.
Yeah, which was 2004. Is that
2004.
what it was?
Yeah.
In Minneapolis at the Fine
Uh-huh.
Line Cafe. And a couple of years later, I saw Frank Black solo in Chicago, which was, I think that was when Fast Man Raider Man had come out.
Okay, okay. And had you followed his solo stuff since then?
Indeed.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have always been pretty deep into both the Frank Black and Kim Deal solo stuff as well. Like big into Pixies, um, and big into just them. Whatever they do, because it's all been pretty good. I don't mean literally like every song, but there's always something that like neither one of them puts out an album where I'm just like that is 100% uninteresting. There's always something out there.
Yeah, I mean, I think towards the end of the Frank Black solo era, for me, the albums were definitely like losing some steam. But um, I first saw Frank Black do his solo thing in 1992 at the Warfield, um, 92 or 93. I think it was 93 because I was 12. I think I was 12. And it was just when you're that age and you're just seeing shows, starting to see shows, seeing Frank Black at like his studio polished band with like all this great music and dipping. I think I should find that show. There's got to be a recording of it somewhere. Um, and I think dipping into Pixies, which I didn't really know anything about Pixies at the time, um, and came around to them later after wearing out this cassette tape that either my dad or my stepmom had put together for me when I returned to my um, hibernation in Iowa. I'd spend summers in California and then the other 9 or 10 months in Iowa. But I'd come back with like all this great music. And one of the cassettes was side A was the first Frank Black record, which famously starts out with Los Angeles, and then side B was Trompe le Monde by the Pixies.
Hmm.
So that really informed that. I was thinking about that a lot because I don't see like a really big stylistic or like musical separation between the last two Pixies records, Bossa Nova and Trompe le Monde, and really like the first three Frank Black records. And there are themes that continue throughout, but just in terms of like, I think every song that is on at least the first two Frank Black solo records, Frank Black and Teenager of the Year, could easily have been shuffled onto a late period Pixies record.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. I guess where I have a potentially hot take on this is, I think the first two Frank Black albums are better than the last two Pixies albums.
Ooh,
Um,
wow, yeah.
yeah, I know that's potentially
You think he was like
that's
hoarding
that's a
hoarding his hit
bombshell,
tunes?
I
Yeah.
think.
Yeah, I think that they're all really good, but yeah, those first two solo records are uh, a point in time where he's trying to like really, go for the brass ring and become. Uh, I don't know who he was trying to like model his career after, but he was really going for it. I mean, he had the best studio time, layers and layers of overdubs, very expensive records before people were recording everything at home. And I thought it was great. And I saw him a bunch of times before we happened into that Pixies show. So yeah, I saw him 92, 93, and then saw him again in, I guess that would be 1999 at Bimbo's, when I guess that would be 99 when he was touring behind Pistolero. And then we saw, oh wow, yeah, great show in Nashville at the Exit Inn, which I guess would have been 2002, 2003, somewhere in there, which was just like so loud. And then several solo shows in Portland, probably 2 or 3, and then yeah, we saw Pixies together, and then saw a couple really great Pixies shows in Portland at the Roseland. One was billed as the B-sides and rarities show, which was really fun. So like, Dance the Manta Ray and things like that.
Yeah. Well, okay. So since you're going through like the history of engagement, mine actually starts with Doolittle, because like I'm not 100% sure I remember this correctly, but things do happen, and sometimes uncool radio stations
Yeah.
play cool songs. And I do remember hearing "Here Comes Your Man" on the radio somewhere, and I do think that there was one radio station in eastern Iowa where I grew up that was playing it. I don't remember that for a fact, but that's that I know that song was my introduction to the Pixies, and I bought Doolittle because of that. And basically, so that's where that started off. Like the natural progression. I got Surfer Rosa next, and just went from there. Um, and then like when the first Frank Black album came out, I had it, and I didn't bond with it immediately. But when I did, I really loved it. And then, Teenager of the Year had the big single Headache, which at that time, like,
Conan O'Brien
yeah,
show, and yeah, I think like the
well, it
first
was,
few days that Conan O'Brien was on, Frank Black was a musical guest. I remember that.
yeah, and it
When he
was
played
on
Headache. Yeah.
120 minutes, and
Oh yeah, 120 minutes, man.
yeah, yeah, and of course, like that song's another one that I just figure everybody knows. I don't know if that one's on either of our lists because it's so well known, but um, great song, and I think Teenager of the Year kind of helped me get into the first Frank Black solo album a bit more.
Yeah, yeah.
And yeah, so then like then we saw the Pixies reunion, and saw Frank Black solo just that one time. Then saw the Pixies again when they were doing Doolittle in its entirety on the anniversary. I think it was the anniversary, and that was great. And yeah, I gotta see, they did all the B-sides then too. The Fine Line show, we got to see some prime B-sides in that one. Got to see them do their Winter Long cover, the Neil Young song
Yeah.
Winter Long, which I was very happy to see them do that live. And then I guess the other time that I saw them live was at Riot Fest, which they went on right before the Replacements. So we were like in the pit area for part of it, but then had to leave because we wanted to establish some kind of position for the Replacements. So
Festivals.
had to prioritize that one.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
but
and I think okay, so Pixies reunited and they put out okay, so I was doing some math, which I'm not always doing voluntarily. So Pixies were together from 1986 to 1993, which is 7 years, and then reunited in 2004. And here we are in 2021, which, according to my figures, is like 17 years. So, and they've put out 3 albums since they've gotten back together.
They're
Which
just a touring band.
we don't
They're
even have to talk about all that stuff. We can just keep it. What I
they're
want to talk about is how good of a band the Catholics were, and
Mhm.
how when I drop my wish list of like, oh, I wish this band would reunite. I wish this band would reunite. It's like I want to see Frank Black and the Catholics again.
Well, which leads us back to, why are we doing this show? This is why, because um,
Because
these
no one heard those records, and they're
right.
so good. Pistolero is so good. The first Frank Black and the Catholics record, which is confusingly also self-titled, is a really great record. And in between and after, you have The Cult of Ray, which is maybe not a great record, but really entertaining and has some cool tunes on it. And some other albums which for me didn't really grab me as much, but always had cool tunes on them.
Mhm.
And live, they were probably one of the fiercest like guitar bands. And I give a lot of credit. I want to definitely credit Rich Gilbert, who was the lead guitarist in the Catholics, formerly of the Boston band the Zulus, as being a huge part of like such a great foil to Frank Black. In the way that Joey Santiago had his own like very very distinct style. Rich Gilbert had his own style too, and his was like more like Bakerfield country, but still just like the loudest, the loudest show you've been to.
Yeah. Which, that's the other thing. I don't know if this factors into I don't know. To me, the lack of awareness of that stuff is just baffling. But a lot of it is a strong contrast in styles from somebody that might be coming from Pixie stuff. But you know, doesn't mean it's not great.
Yeah,
But
I don't know. I mean, I just think that but with both Pixies and Frank Black, and like 99.9% of the Breeders stuff, it was just like out like the wrong music in the wrong time to really connect with people in a commercial way. I mean, you think about the albums that came out in 1993 that were on the same shelf as that first Frank Black record. You have like totally cheesy stuff like Pearl Jam and Alanis Morissette and all that stuff, who I'm sure are nice people. But you know, definitely, I listen through a lot of this stuff, and some of it I listen to occasionally, but maybe not for a while. And yeah, it's still really really good and still kind of out of time.
yeah, well, or is it timeless? I mean, I guess it's probably a good time to launch into our list. Um, do you want me to kick that off?
I'll talk about. I do want you to kick it off, yes, please. But I'm like I said, I put like what is it, 35 tunes on mine, and it's totally excessive, but all good stuff. And I don't need to talk about everything, but I'll pick out a few things. So yeah,
Yeah, excellent.
let's talk about your jams, dude.
Okay, so like I do, I just put together a list that is not chronological or anything. Just something where I feel like this has a good flow to it, a good start to end sort of thing, and kind of will hopefully work like it's one album, and a good song, that I felt like a good way to kick it off would be the song Blast Off. You might have an idea right from the title why I would use it. From the album Dog in the Sand. Dog in the Sand. So that's Frank Black and the Catholics. Um, and Dog in the Sand came out in '01. And yeah, just a really cool way to lead it off. It starts off like it starts off really sparse and like it's going to be one kind of song, and then just turns into a rave up, as the kids say, from
They
there.
do say that.
And yeah, and then my lead off Kim Deal track is a later Breeders track from titled TK, Son of Three. And so I feel like those are two good establishing tracks, kind of set the pace for the album, or the playlist.
Sure, and those are really fun. I like Title TK a lot. I think Dog in the Sand for me is the first album where I didn't rush out to buy every Frank Black and the Catholics record after that, because it's, for me, it's like a pretty uneven deal. I and I'm looking at my list. I'm gonna just give you a couple little um, patches of it, but "Hang On to Your Ego" is a really interesting tune, and I always love this. I knew it was a Beach Boys tune.
Mm.
Um, I know the original very well too, which is "Hang On to Yourself," with the backstory being that
Uh, the original is "I Know There's an Answer,"
I know
or
there's an answer. Yeah, uh,
hang on to your ego. Like I'm not certain that "Hang On to Your Ego" is not actually the original, but I know there's an answer is the way that it was released on Pet Sounds, and
right,
hang on to your ego, what they recorded but didn't release it that way.
right. Because Mike Love said, "I don't want to do any drug songs," and I think you're talking about drug stuff by saying "Hang On to Your Ego," which is why Mike Love is never invited to my parties over
I would
here
say it's
in
not
California.
just because of that, but
Not just that, but one of many contributors. But "Hang On to Your Ego," I mean, that's got to sting if you're Brian Wilson, because that's such a cool line,
mhm.
and it's such a cool chorus. And even before I heard this version or knew anything about the origins of how that song came together, uh, like, I always thought that song had some kind of clunky things like when you can kind of tell um, that a singer doesn't really want to be singing what they're singing, like that Ed Sullivan appearance with the Stones, where it's like, "Let's spend some time together,"
Yeah.
I get it, yeah. So, that Freedom Rock, is just, another really cool, fierce, like, science fiction tune. Teenager of the Year. Science fiction, I think, is, one of the themes that I tried to construct a few little runs in here where for me, like, we've talked about this a bunch of times, and, you've heard this a lot in my own music, where I'm often, like, really bored um, people that are just writing the song about, like, my girlfriend broke up with me, yada, 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 and I'm seeing them, you know, play this song about, "Oh, my girlfriend broke up with me," and they've been, like, happily married for 10 years, and it's like, "What? Why aren't you writing anything interesting about, like, real stuff?" And so, I love that about Frank Black, that there's this huge, thematic arc in I think starting with early Pixies, but definitely on Bossa Nova and Trump Lamont, where you have a lot of, like, science fiction kind of themes, or like, you know, like Big Red on Teenager of the Year, is a cool tune, and is kind of about people terraforming Mars, and
Mhm.
all squeezed into, like, this really punchy 2 minute and 41 pop song. So, Big Red, Creature Crawling, and then Billy Radcliffe, I thought, was always a really cool tune. What's the line, like, Billy Radcliffe, very first one, um, merely a hatched man, a light switch son. It's about uh, this kid named Billy Radcliffe who's been like manufactured to colonize space.
Mm.
And it's another like 2-minute 22 like totally cool, well written, catchy pop song. And then space is gonna do me good because it will. And then other things that I think really like jump out of the norms in terms of Girl I Like You songwriting uh, is I Heard Ramona Sing, which is another arguably hit, from his first Frank Black record. And I put that on there because it has this line that gets me every time, which I think is super poignant, which is, I had so many problems and then I got me a Walkman.
Yeah. Well, and Freedom Rock has that funny section to it about him going to the record store and and then having to or just disappointing the person that uh expects him to, I guess. I haven't actually listened to it in a while, but it's but the title Freedom Rock comes from this section of the song where it's just like he's basically telling somebody at the record store, hey, all I listen to is Freedom Rock. And it's that sort of I guess fan encounter where it just um you think I'm Mr. Cool, but I'm listening to the Doobie Brothers or whatever.
I don't know about that interpretation, but I do love that exchange. It's like a scene in a film or something where um uh he says like, I hate to tell you this, but it's gonna come as a shock, but all I listen to is all Freedom Rock.
Right, yeah.
Freedom Rock for me is like, you know, uh to actually like stop and think about it. I think, maybe he's like, that's what I'm doing, man. I'm not constrained by Pixies anymore.
Yeah.
Um and just to, I think some of the like almost success of the Pixies was maybe a constraint. And I think that the band format was a constraint. So I think that's what Freedom Rock is about for me.
Well,
Um,
Freedom Rock, like maybe this, I don't know. You're familiar with that reference, though, right? Freedom Rock.
no,
Okay, so there was like a KTEL. It was either KTEL or KTEL like compilation, and we're all familiar with what I'm referring to with KTEL, right?
no, no. Tell me more.
Okay, well, KTEL would put out like like those compilations like Now That's What I Call Music and that sort of
Oh
thing.
yeah, yeah.
Okay, that was preceded by KTEL. KTEL was a giant in that arena, and they would have compilations, and then they would have TV spots for them that ran all the time. So one of these compilations was called Freedom Rock, and the reason why I say Doobie Brothers because it's the first band that sprang to my mind from those TV commercials, and it'd just be all kind of like like classic rock. And it was called Freedom Rock, I think, because a lot of it was, in that the hippie era, um, like those hits, but big hits, and yeah, that's where Freedom Rock comes from.
Okay, that's cool. I like that too, and I like that. Still kind of interpreting that. If you're someone who's such a cult, like cool, interesting person as Frank Black, I like that idea of him being in this record store and the record store guy being like, "Well, you obviously only listen to like artists on 4AD that no one's heard of,"
Right? Yeah, yeah.
and then him being like, "No, dude, I just want to rock and put on some Chicago every once in a while,
Right.
drive
Yeah.
around,
It's not. It's
my
it's
Ford
not all My
Bronco."
Bloody Valentine.
Yeah. Yeah, good chat. I really, yeah, I mean, those are such cool records. I think they're just really imprinted on me too. So I have a hard time seeing out from under them. I mean, I can't
So
tell you how many times I've listened to that first Frank Black record and Teenager of the Year.
yeah, definitely great records. Um, and like that's where the popularity drops off, for his output. but we're going to go down that road because there's a lot to be explored.
I wanted to just point out something about that relating to our artistic interpretation of the song Freedom Rock. So I think the Achtung Baby tour, which I think is 91 for U2, Pixies are the opener. Fast forward 10 years to 2001, and it's time to play Gabe's Oasis and Bimbos in San Francisco. And I think if you were to ask him, he'd be happier, doing those small clubs and Exit In and Nashville, that kind of thing.
Yeah. By the way, though, my suggestion for when we're done is to watch the Freedom Rock commercial on YouTube.
Overdubbed with that song. That's the music video, right?
Right. Yeah. Okay. So my next track is from Frank Black and the Catholics, self-titled, and that's "Do You Feel Bad About It?"
Yeah.
Really great. These are all bangers, so I'm not going to say this is a banger because these are all bangers.
I want to get a little nerdy about this particular album more, other than I'd like to get nerdy about all of them, but this one in particular is really, really fun to talk about in terms of reflecting like what he's trying to do in the music industry. Like
yeah. And this was 1998.
Yeah, totally cool record. And it's recorded live to 2-track
at Sound City.
Yeah. So and you can hear it, like it's so cool to I love the preceding 3 records, and they sound great, and they're obviously like Eric Drew Feldman is on it on the first 2 or 3 with all these great like keyboard whatnots. And then he gets the Catholics together and is like, okay, well, we're gonna just like put together this kind of vaguely country sounding rock band, and instead of spending like 4 days getting the drum sound right, they dial in these songs and record them live. I think I read somewhere that there's like only one overdub on the first Frank Black and the Catholics record, and it's all just how Buddy Holly used to record. Was you get everyone in the room, the song, you play it well, it's on the tape.
Yeah, I mean, they definitely had a lot of chemistry. It comes through in spades on this, and yeah, it is something. I mean, it's something you would think maybe a band that has been together for at least 10 years can maybe go into a studio and not have to worry about any overdubs and just do everything live. And do you know how many takes they would do or anything like that? But
yeah, I don't know. I'm assuming it's like two takes per tune, and they probably use take 1 like every single time, like Bowie.
Yeah, it is definitely impressive, and it does, like, there's a reason why you do that, is because you're wanting to capture that live feel, and the album really does.
Yeah, and it's a loud record. It's not as like chocked full of I don't think I think it's a neat record too, because with the exception of maybe like one song for me, I don't think any of these would be at home on a Pixies record. I think I Gotta
Right.
Move is probably like the only one that you could like maybe shoehorn into later Pixies records, which is that's my pick. My main pick from this one is I Gotta Move, which is just straight up just rock and roll. So I like that departure, that he's kind of sort of back in a band again. He's obviously the leader of the group, but other people are letting their artistic preferences kind of seep over, and and that's really fun. After because the first three were like Frank Black in a control room, throwing all the switches. So, and this is more collaborative.
Yeah, it's great. But yeah, you Got to Move is probably the one track that works on a Pixies album. But that's like I don't have even a little bit of a problem loving both of them. I don't know about equally, but loving both of them a great deal.
Yeah, yeah, I really liked it. I remember um, being a teenager and having like $40 to my name and using $14.99 of those $40 to purchase this record at the Sam Goody in the mall in Ames. So there you have it. That's what music means to me.
And there you go.
Yeah. Oh, moving on. What you got?
Well, my next track, another Frank Black track, going to the first album. So this is the first one on my list from the first Frank Black album, and it's Old Black Dawning. Like I said, I didn't devote a whole lot of space to the Frank Black album because I felt like that's kind of the one that people know if they know any of his non-Pixie stuff. So there's a lot of great tracks on it. I could go with a ton of them. Old Black Dawning is a great one, and it just kind of fit my list. And then Teenager of the Year, kind of the same thing. Like a lot of tracks I really love off of Teenager of the Year. Only picked one for my list because hopefully you know it, and if you don't, check
You
it
kind
out.
of need to have it in at least in your like Spotify collection. It's
Right.
solid record, dude.
Yeah, I mean, if you have a Spotify collection, you can here's a secret for you, free Spotify
Cheat
users.
code.
Yeah, here's a G code for you. Here's a life hack, a Spotify hack. Uh, it's kind of unlimited, like you can just listen to all of the tracks on an album. You don't just have to listen to one or two of them. Um, so yeah, give that a whirl.
Yeah, think about it, kids.
And and the track that I have from Teenager of the Year is "I Want to Live on an Abstract Plane," which is a great song. I also think it might be a little bit of a nod to Jonathan Richman, who, of course, on the Modern Lovers album had the track "Abstract Plane." So I feel like it might be at least a little bit inspired by that.
Doesn't wait, oh man, isn't it I want to live on a isn't the Jonathan Richman one about the astral plane?
That's right. That's correct. Um, I'm
I
still
hate to be fact checker, but
I'm
um
still going to stick with that somehow inspired this track.
I think it did, I think one of the really, really fun things about being a songwriter uh is and I think Bob Pollard would agree with me is just like listening to people and either like mishearing things or hearing things kind of put together in a out of
Yeah,
context and you've got
it's
an instant album title or song title.
yeah.
So
Well, it's still an ethereal plane that we're talking about for one thing.
yeah, exactly. So I think he was probably having a conversation about how much he loves Modern Lovers, Boston, right?
Well,
And someone was like, "Oh, I like that Abstract Plane song."
yeah, I mean, one thing, at least one thing to support my theory on this is he did have a song that he wrote about Jonathan Richman, which was
Ooh.
called "The Man Who Was Too Loud" from the
Oh,
Frank
yeah.
Black and the Catholics. So, which was about how Jonathan Richman did a lot of loud music and then decided not to do loud music anymore.
Huh, I never put that together. That was about JoJo.
Yeah, that's about JoJo.
Wow.
So, yeah. So there you go. I mean, if one is not even a little bit connected to the other, there's like pretty direct connection on that track. So
Yeah, I'm very, very happy to hear about that. So if you, I think that later we kind of touch on some of the later. I'm sorry, we touch on some of the later Frank Black and the Catholic stuff, which I don't think he really puts out a very cohesive record after Pistolero. Those are my controversial statements.
yeah, I like Dog in the Sand. I like Black Letter Days. Uh, I would say decreasingly cohesive is, I guess, the way I would put it. I think there's I like those. I like both of those albums quite a bit, but I wouldn't have any disagreement about any of the other ones.
Yeah, so I think there are 5 Pixies records first time around, and then um, Frank Black, Teenager of the Year, The Cult of Ray, which is Ray Bradbury, and then Frank Black and the Catholics, and then Pistolero, which is another Catholics record. I think those are the essentials. Am I wrong?
Right, yeah. But yeah, I mean, as far as being cohesive, I don't really think Trump Monde is all that cohesive. So it's not like that was the first time that that ever happened.
Yeah, Trump Le Mand's a weird one. We could do a whole show about that, but I like what a grab bag that album is, and it's totally I think maybe their first record where as a band they are having a band meeting. They're like, oh, we don't have to worry about like 23 minutes per side. It's a CD now, so I think that's part of it.
Yeah. Okay, so did you want to go back to your list or should I proceed?
People can check out my list. One thing I really enjoyed is hopping from Hang On to Your Ego, Freedom Rock. I Switched You from Pistolero, awesome tune, to Tip City by the Amps. Do you want to talk about the Amps and the Breeders a little bit?
Well, I'm not there on my list yet, but we can, or should I just fill in my list up to the amps and then we'll talk about the amps?
Yeah, whatever you feel is best. But yeah, we don't have to
Okay.
talk about my list like anymore because it's just awesome tune after awesome tune. I don't know how much I can really tell you. Um, but yeah, I'd love to hear what your next thoughts are.
Okay. So next I'm going back to Kim. And this is my one track from Last Splash because, well, Kim, or no, it's not my one. It's not my only
Yeah,
track
you
from
you
Last
can't
Splash.
you can't neglect Driving on 9, which I see that you
Right.
have later.
Yeah. Well, spoiler alert. But the next track on my list is from Last Splash, and it's "Do You Love Me Now." Um, just really cool. This wasn't the first time that they recorded this one, but the Last Splash version is my favorite. I think I might be in the minority on that, but I don't care. To
I
me.
like that a lot of people picked up that record because of Cannonball and then found that it's like a really cool record.
Hmm. Yeah.
That
I
was
mean,
always in the Cutout Bennett Amoeba.
it could be, that could have been like the jumping off point for a lot of people to the Pixies. It's hard to say. And then, kind of in the same vein, because "Do You Love Me Now" is, well, it has the loud, quiet, loud to it.
What?
But maybe more of a focus on the quiet part for that track. And then my next one from Title TK is "Off You," which is very quiet, and very sweet and melancholy, and um, maybe if you aren't aware of the original track, you might have come across the cover by Big Thief, which was either late last year or early this year. I don't remember. But really great cover of that too. I'm not gonna say it's as good as the original. It's not. Still very good, and they have their own take on it for sure.
Great. That's good to know. I think, yeah, a whole other show would be really fun covers from these people, but from this batch of songs and records, I mean. And yeah, what else you got?
Then back to Frank Black and the Catholics from Devil's Workshop, out of state, which again, another rootsy one. A lot of the Catholic stuff is very rootsy, and yeah. Then staying in that same vein, I have Back to Rome from the self-titled Frank Black and the Catholics album.
Yeah, cool stuff.
Really, yeah, really cool. Again, rootsy, but
Oh, I'm so glad that I'm really glad that you brought up Back to Rome.
yeah,
Yeah, totally the rootsy loud rock and roll thing. But I
yeah,
always love that line. We had a dream it was Behemoth,
right,
and
yeah,
that means
no,
a lot to me because one of our cats is named Behemoth.
oh, nice. Yeah, a lot of great lines throughout all this stuff. But another cool thing about this track is how it kind of gradually speeds up. Like it doesn't just go slow and then fast. It's slow and then it builds up to the fast. It just kind of this gradualness that I don't know. I don't think that's probably a word.
It's a word.
There's
If you're using it, it's a word, buddy.
there's
If you like it, I
there's
like it.
there's some kind of word to that effect, I'm sure, and it's a cool one.
Yeah, yeah, I like that too. I think there are a lot of interesting geographical call outs, in the Frank Black oeuvre. Um, so yeah, putting all the pieces together.
Yeah, and then we're up to my tracks from the Amps album Pacer,
Yes,
and
such a good record.
yeah, and so the Amps,
Yeah,
I'm not
tell me about this record. It's kind of an oddball. Like, why isn't this a Breeders record?
exactly. I don't exactly know why it's not a Breeders record, but I'm sure it has. Well, I mean, it was still on 4AD, so I don't know. Can't be some kind of contractual issue. But at any rate, in 1995, shortly after Cannonball, the hugeness of Cannonball, and Last Splash, and everything, all of that success, um, yeah, Kim Deal decided to release the album Pacer as a band called the Amps. And do you know the reason why the Amps instead of the Breeders?
I think all I know about it is that I heard in one interview that Kim Deal's like maybe only regret from her musical career is not releasing this album as a Breeders record,
And
because
some
it makes no sense to me why they would do that, other than maybe like not hurting someone's feelings that like someone in the Breeders band that recorded Cannonball that couldn't make it
Mhm.
while while they were writing other tunes, and they didn't want that person to feel excluded or something. But
Yeah.
I think on all pretty much in every single way except for musically, that it's probably like a mistake to have done it that way.
Ye-
Um, I think that if it were a Breeders record following Last Splash, I think
It would be
a lot of
louder.
these tunes would have been on 120 minutes or on
Yeah.
on the radio.
Yeah, I mean it's not quite as loud as the Breeder stuff though too. There's a slight, it's not like a drastic stylistic difference, but there is a little bit of a difference to them. Uh they did they did re-record Full On Idol from this album as a Breeder song later on. That's the only one though. Uh but it's one of those things that I think people do, like her big fans anyway. They do stumble onto this one, and it is rewarding.
Yeah,
Uh,
another CD that I remember being very easy to find in used record store cutout bins in the $5 section.
That is sad. Yeah, I suppose that's probably true. That's kind of sad. Yeah, it's a great album, but yeah, it's I guess what the difference is between this and Last Splash, radio play for sure. Um, I don't remember a video from this album, but I do remember seeing them on Conan as the amps.
Yeah, no idea. But I would like to say that this kind of loops back to our Guided by Voices shows,
It does.
in that Nate Farley was in the amps. He
Yeah.
was also in a few incarnations of Guided by Voices, starting around Do the Claps.
Yeah, and okay, and so my first track from this album is Pacer. The second track is Dedicated, which is co-written by a certain Mr. Robert Pollard.
Oh, no way. I didn't know that.
Yeah. Yeah, and of course, this was around the same time that Kim Deal was producing some of the tracks on Under the Bushes, Under the Stars. And around the time when I guess this would have been maybe a year after the Breeders did their the Head to Toe EP where they did a cover of of Shocker and Gloomtown,
Oh, there you go.
and
Okay. Yeah.
and yeah, so I mean a lot of those, and by the way, Head to Toe, not so easy to find, but definitely worth finding. Um, that Head to Toe is the lead single off of it. Shocker and Gloomtown, which by the way, they made a video for their cover of Shocker and Gloomtown, which
Huh.
was a pretty cool thing. And a Sebado or a Lou Barlow cover at any rate. I don't remember if this was a Sebado song or one of his many other offshoots. But Freed Pig cover of that, and a different version of Saints from Last Splash.
There you go. And my relationship with the Breeders goes back further um, than my interaction with Frank Black, because I remember when Pod came out, which I think is 90 or 91, right?
Yeah.
Getting advanced copy of that, and really just like I still just really drawn in by that record, and such an atmospheric uh, record. And yeah, the tunes that rock, like Iris. Yeah, they're just really gentle, quiet songs, and then they just like rock for like 4 bars and back to this, really gauzy kind of production value. It's a cool record if you don't know it. If you only know like, later stuff, definitely go back and check out Pod.
Yeah, and I guess I should fill in a blank there because I said Kim Deal producing Under the Bushes, Under the Stars. I should add that that's a Guided by Voices record in case you think that there was a band by that name.
Oh yeah, good
Um,
call, good call. I am kind of questioning your inclusion of Pod because that came out at the same time as Bossa Nova. But we can let
yeah,
that go.
well,
That's cool. That's
well,
cool.
I will. We aren't there yet, but we'll be there in 2 tracks. But I will get to that. Yeah, I mean there are a couple of asterisks here. Um, my next track on my list, which we're up to number 12 now, from Dog in the Sand, I have Hermaphroditos from Frank Black and the Catholics.
Huh.
And as you might guess from the title, some gender identity uh, themes being explored. Really cool, very Stonesy track. Again, that's kind of what the sound of Frank Black and the Catholics was. But yeah, just love the crunchy, like it's sort of that meaner, that toothier Rolling Stone sound.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and a very cool, very Stonesy slide guitar over the top, and I love it. I love the sound of the song.
Yeah, I think this coming out as a big single on that record, I'm pretty much exactly how I am today, where I'm just like, kind of shrug a little bit. Like the so many better tunes on previous records, and I think even some better tunes on this record.
I
But
obviously, I'm obviously not in agreement because
yeah, that's
yeah,
cool. That's cool.
yeah. There's a reason why I pulled this one, because there are other songs I like off that album. I do like this one the most.
Far out, man.
Okay, so yeah, we're up to the asterisk now. Track 13, track Doe, from the Breeders, from Pod. Yep, not technically Post-Pixies, but then again, the Pixies are back together, so technically none of this is Post-Pixies anymore. So
That's a big stretch of logic, but I'll
well, there's more to it.
okay,
Um,
okay.
I mean, I mean, you know,
You
to
just
me that
undermine the premise of our show, man.
yeah, I mean, to me, Post-Pixies is a title, and it works well as a title, but the theme really is Pixies adjacent. That's not as good of a title.
I
So
think we're mining that period of time when the Pixies were dormant between 93 and 2004 and
yeah, yeah. I mean,
yeah, yeah.
these are the things that happened when the Pixies were not together. So even though technically they were still a band at this point, they were not together at this point because the Breeders were in the studio, and Black Francis and Joey Santiago and Dave Lovering, they were not present in the studio with them. So technically the Pixies were not together at that time.
Can I just go a little bit off topic for a second? That I think we kind of knew that Pixies were getting back together uh, when my girlfriend, now my wife, and our pals saw Frank Black and the Catholics in Nashville. Do you know who the opening band was?
Not the Breeders.
It was David Lovering and his wife doing a magic act.
Oh yeah, okay. So there you go.
There you go.
But he did not do any drumming that evening, or
He used one of his kick drums in a kind of a science experiment about how smoke rings work, which was also part of a like a magic interlude. It was very entertaining. But anyway, that's my little aside. It was very fun.
there you go. Yeah, so there's an asterisk here, sure. But technically none of this stuff is really post Pixies. It's just a good title. And if you're listening right now, it's the title got you here, right? Pretty much.
That's right.
So, um, yeah, I accept full responsibility for any asterisks on this. Staying with Kim, from Last Flash, we got Driving on 9. You can't not. I think you already alluded to this. You can't not love this track.
I love it. It's driving on 9. Does Daddy have a shotgun? Guess he never needs one. Yeah, it's
Which,
such a catchy song, and so I don't know, like
yeah,
you know,
reference to the Shotgun Wedding. I guess they're taking off from, and that.
yeah, it's totally a cool tune, and you kind of guess that driving on 9, like Interstate 9 or something like that. It's ambiguous, and it's like it's got a great vibe to it. It has like banjo and stuff.
Yeah, very countryish, and
Yeah, or I guess
along.
plucked like pizzicato violin and stuff like that.
Yeah, and if you're listening, this is on the same album with Cannonball. Like if you're listening to this album, it's a real departure from the rest of it. But very cool. It works, regardless of the fact that it clash. Musically it clashes with a lot of the rest of the album, but in the same time frame, they also did, which was released as a B-side on Divine Hammer, maybe. I'm not exactly sure, but they did a cover of "I Can't Help It If I'm Still in Love with You." Very, very sweet, and yeah, just great arrangement of a country classic. So yeah, it's just I would welcome even more diversity on that album, but this gives you a lot of it in one track.
Yeah, great tune. I love that tune.
Then picking back up with Frank Black again, road movie to Berlin, which is from They Might Be Giants tribute album called Hello Radio. Cool track. I think you almost wouldn't know that it's a cover. And there are a lot of cool lyrics in it, but the original They Might Be Giants version on it, I kind of think it's just okay, and I really love this cover of it. Um, but yeah, I mean, to their credit, a lot of great lines in this. I mean, first of all, I think what this is referencing is like those Bob Hope and Bing Crosby movies, those road movies, and yeah, just I think a lot of cool ideas. Like all hell's breaking loose in this bar that we're in, but I'm going to make sure to sneak out my drink and take that with me while we're escaping this.
Oh yeah, cool. Yeah, new tune for me.
Oh, nice. Okay. And yeah, then this one also not technically post Pixies, I think. I think they were still together when this happened. But this is another cover, so I have back-to-back covers here. A cover of Chris Bell's "You and Your Sister,"
Oh wow, yeah.
which is on the This Mortal Coil album "Blood" from 1991, and the vocals on it are Kim Deal and Tanya Donnelly, of course, of the Breeders.
Yeah.
That was the Breeders lineup at that time.
Nice.
Then finishing off, and by the way, You and Your Sister, and like I've talked about Chris Bell a lot on the show in the past, and You and Your Sister is the B side of I Am the Cosmos, and I Am the Cosmos and You and Your Sister might be my favorite A side B side combination ever.
Yeah. Wow.
Probably is. And someday I hope to own an original 45 of that.
Yeah. It will happen.
What's that?
It will happen. Keep that dream alive.
I will. That dream will never die. um, yeah. Then from Black Letter Days, we've talked about it briefly to this point, but have the song "California Bound" from Black Letter Days. Really love this. It's one of those. It's really cool. Like it's melancholy but positive at the same time, and again, great guitar playing on this. Really cool slide guitar, and it's one of those tracks that is really, I think, especially nice at kind of that twilight period of the day.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I
And
totally forgot about this song until you put it on the list.
yeah, and it true to its title, like I think it kind of puts you in the mindset of, like it kind of has that kind of puts you in the headspace of driving around in California.
Yeah, I think specifically, from the way I understand it, he was living for a while. Frank Black was living for a while in Eugene, Oregon, after LA. And so if you're on the West Coast and you want to go from Los Angeles to Seattle, or, San Diego to Seattle, you're going to drive on I-5, which is the north-south big highway. And listening back to a lot of these tunes, there are like a ton of references to things that you only see on I-5, which is really fun. Like he references something about like in a town called Weed. Um, I'm like, oh yeah, like Weed, Oregon is one of the kind of stopover spots as you cross the California border, where I think it's right after Mount Shasta pass, and it's the place where you get gasoline and stop for pizza. So kind of nostalgic a little bit.
Yeah, and yeah, and yeah. I mean, you live there. I've visited there, so you have a better feel for it. Uh, but uh, but yeah, to me, it just kind of puts me in that mindset, and it just makes me think about driving around and not like in the city in California, but between cities.
Yeah, and me too. And it really captures that whole thing about, you're going over these gorgeous mountain passes and you have to time it right so the sun isn't in your eyes when you're on a highway on the side of a mountain. Pro tip.
Yeah. And to finish up my list, I guess I'm sticking with geography here.
Sure.
My next one is Manitoba from Frank Black and the Catholics. You can't say I didn't represent Frank Black and the Catholics really well on my list, because
Yeah.
I think we're in agreement that that stuff was really great. From Show Me Your Tears, I got Manitoba, and it's one of those that pretty sure it's an original, but definitely, like, it's so singer songwritery, that I actually have to double check this. But um, unless you happen to know off the top of your head.
I don't, but yeah, I do like that. I think "Show Me Your Tears" has some great moments. That tune, Nadine, I put on my list, which is really cool. Yeah,
It is an original. Yeah, so yeah, it just kind of goes to show you. I don't know. It's an absolutely great song, and it just sounds like. I don't want to say that it sounds like something he's incapable of. Obviously, he's very capable of it, but it's almost a surprise to me that he wrote it. It's just because I don't know.
I like that evolution of him from being, you know, college radio and like hip record store guy, writing these really interesting kind of like pop art, um, loud rock and roll tunes to being, leader of like really, really good like country bar band, in a
Mhm.
way, and writing the songs that are appropriate for, either bucket.
Yeah, and I gotta add, really cool trumpet work on this track. I really love that sound, and it paints a very bleak picture, and the music just really helps to capture that.
Yeah. Yeah, good way to end it, buddy. That's a good one. Oh, yeah, well, we've really, really covered the full scope. I hope if you're listening to this, you're like me, where you dig into this stuff and find out that you have to go onto your artist's website or eBay and buy some vinyl. So definitely
Hope,
encourage you to
yeah,
support these people that we're talking about.
I'm just hoping some of this is available. Like, I know some of it's available on vinyl, but I'm thinking a lot of this probably still is not available on vinyl.
Yeah, I ran across first Frank Black album is on vinyl. I didn't see Teenager of the Year. Uh
I do have that on vinyl.
yeah, there you go. Question answered. But yeah, things like Cult of Ray that got caught in record companies, dissolving and conglomerating. Yeah, some of this stuff you got to seek out if you want to actually own it. And I thought that was a really fun thing about following following these bands, trying to find all their neglected EPs.
Yeah, I think a lot of the Frank Black and the Catholic stuff is not available on vinyl at this point.
Yeah, well, Rich Gilbert, if you're out there, make some calls. Yeah, and with that, let's wrap it up. I've really enjoyed getting back into this music and talking it over with you, buddy.
Yeah, you too. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I go back to this stuff quite a bit. So this wasn't like a deep dive back into the past for me. I stick with this stuff, and go back to it every now and then.
Yeah, me too, but maybe not as often. And this is one band where I like the Frank Black tunes that I'm talking about. I love them just as much as I loved them when I was 12, and it's so cool to listen to records and be able to feel that way.
Indeed. And we will do it again in a week.
Okay, this has been Left of the Dial podcast, and I'll see you when I see you.
Also known as the LOTD pod.
That's right, man. Yep. That's what they call it on the street.
See you on the flip.
All right. Till next time.
As the kids say.